On May 14, 2001, a woman named Annie Leong in Singapore was about to end her marriage. All she needed to do was pick up a pen and sign the divorce papers, and she could finally put an end to the 7-year-long troubled relationship with her husband. But as she stepped out of the elevator, a sharp knife plunged into her chest. Perhaps even as she fell to the ground, she couldn't comprehend who wanted to take her life. So what exactly happened at that moment? Let's explore today's case with Crime Documentary Files. Annie Leong was born in 1971 in Singapore. From a young age she was known for being smart, beautiful, and beloved by her family and friends. At the age of 15, she met a man 4 years older than her at church, who would eventually become her husband. His name was Anthony Lear. From that fateful meeting, Annie Leong and Anthony Lear developed feelings for each other, and got married in 1995. As she entered her new life, Annie Leong devoted herself to caring for her family, building a warm home, and taking good care of her husband. Her stable job at a bank further enriched their life together. Their happiness doubled when their little daughter Anne was born on April 13, 1997. Unfortunately, this picture-perfect life didn't last long. Anthony Lear, though outwardly charming and ambitious, was actually incompetent and useless. With blind confidence in his abilities, he repeatedly attempted to start businesses, only to face humiliating failures. Despite this, he stubbornly refused to give up. After several such attempts, he drained the family's savings and sank into debt. Annie Leong, who had initially quit her job at the bank to stay home and help her husband, was now forced to rely on her connections to return to work. She had no other choice as life had to go on, and the debt still needed to be paid. If it were just his failed career, that might have been forgivable, but Anthony Lear's infidelity was far more reprehensible. Not only did he have an affair with a woman named Belinda Ho, but he also brazenly brought her to live in their home under the guise of being a business partner. While his wife and mistress lived under the same roof, Anthony Lear managed to juggle both relationships. In this regard, he truly had a knack for deceit. Later, he found another partner named Marilyn Tan. And of course their relationship extended beyond business. Eventually, when their business ventures failed, they parted ways on bitter terms after a brief relationship. Although Anthony Lear was skillful at hiding his affairs and continuously deceived his wife, over time, Annie Leong began to suspect something was wrong. By October 1999, unable to endure it any longer, Annie Leong took her daughter and moved back to her mother's house. In 2000, after yet another failed business venture, Anthony Lear attempted to end his life by taking a large dose of sleeping pills, but he was discovered and saved, just in time. Despite all the hurt she had endured, Annie Leong went to the hospital to care for Anthony Lear for a while. After this incident, Annie Leong lost all desire to salvage the marriage. She was determined to leave, for the sake of her daughter's future and her own. In February 2001, Annie Leong officially filed for divorce and sought custody of their daughter. Naturally, Anthony Lear refused to agree. As a result, he continuously found reasons to delay the process, causing their already fractured relationship to become even more strained. Anthony Lear's refusal to divorce left Annie Leong feeling trapped, unable to escape. The years of torment had ignited a powerful longing for freedom in her, and she wanted to end the marriage as soon as possible. By May 2001, Anthony Lear seemed to agree to the divorce. But tragically, what awaited her was not freedom, but a horrifying nightmare. Around 11 p.m. on May 14, 2001, Anthony Lear arrived at Annie Leong's residence at 923 Hugang Avenue. He told her that there was a real estate agreement that needed her signature as part of the divorce proceedings. Annie Leong lived on the 4th floor, and Anthony Lear arranged to meet her on the ground floor. She brought her daughter down, and was about to sign the documents when she realized she didn't have a pen. Anthony Lear suggested that she go upstairs to get a pen, while he stayed with their daughter downstairs. At this point, Annie Leong was quite annoyed. Why would Anthony Lear prepare the agreement but forget to bring a pen? However, determined to finalize the divorce quickly, she went upstairs to get one. Before heading up, she looked back at her daughter, not knowing it would be the last time she would see her. As soon as Annie Leong stepped out of the elevator on the 4th floor, a man wearing a helmet rushed at her from the hallway, wielding a long knife. He stabbed her repeatedly in the chest and then fled the scene. Despite her severe injuries, Annie Leong managed to crawl to her apartment door and knock. When her mother opened the door, she found her daughter collapsed in a pool of blood. Her mother's terrified screams caught the attention of Anthony Lehr, who was waiting on the ground floor. He immediately rushed upstairs with their daughter and desperately called out to his wife, who lay bleeding on the floor. The ambulance quickly arrived at the scene, but due to the severity of her injuries, Annie Leong passed away after a few hours of emergency treatment at the hospital. In cases where a spouse is harmed, the other spouse is often the primary suspect. Given the severe strain on their marriage, Anthony Lehr was under heavy suspicion. However, he had an alibi. While Annie Leong was attacked on the 4th floor, Anthony Lehr was downstairs playing with their daughter, and several witnesses could confirm this. At Annie Leong's funeral, Anthony Lehr wept bitterly, expressing his profound grief. He told the press that he was a terrible husband, not only failing to take good care of his wife, but also cheating on her, losing money in business ventures, and plunging the family into debt. He even called himself a devil, while referring to his wife as a kind angel. He blamed himself, saying, "If I had brought a pen, if I hadn't let her go upstairs alone, this wouldn't have happened." To outsiders, Anthony Lehr didn't hesitate to reveal his own faults, making it seem as though he genuinely mourned his wife and was truly innocent. However, as the investigation progressed, the truth began to emerge, exposing his dark side. Despite having an alibi, Anthony Lehr stood to gain the most from this tragedy. With Annie Leong's death, he inherited their shared home and secured custody of their daughter. This made him a prime suspect in the eyes of the police. Reflecting on his behavior during the initial questioning, the police found something peculiar. He had been very reluctant and uncooperative. Typically, a loving husband would be eager to assist the police in solving the case as quickly as possible, especially when his wife had been harmed. Additionally, the police found a newspaper at the crime scene, folded into a small piece and used to wrap the weapon. The paper was dated April 31st. Coincidentally, the exact front page was missing from a stack of newspapers at Anthony Lehr's home. This suggested that the missing front page could very well be the one found at the crime scene. When asked about this, Anthony Lehr claimed he knew nothing about it. The police then sent the stack of newspapers to the lab for examination. The results confirmed that the newspaper found at the scene indeed came from Anthony Lehr's home. This indicated that even if he wasn't directly involved in the attack, he was undeniably connected to the crime. Unfortunately, such circumstantial evidence wasn't enough to convict him. However, it at least gave the police a direction for their investigation. Consequently, the police focused their efforts on Anthony Lehr. After several days of investigation, the police finally uncovered a crucial lead. Neighbors had noticed Anthony Lehr frequently gathering with a group of 5 young men, but these meetings didn't seem like typical friendly get-togethers. Instead, they appeared to be plotting something. On May 18, 2001, just 4 days after the incident, the police located 2 of the 5 young men. One was a 15-year-old named A. Gan, and the other was 16-year-old Gavin Jin Wei, who had dropped out of school. Faced with police interrogation, A. Gan, still just a child, quickly cracked under pressure and confessed to murdering Annie Leong. He expressed deep remorse and claimed that Anthony Lehr had coerced him into committing the crime. With this powerful testimony, the police formally arrested Anthony Lehr that same day. On May 19, 2001, both Anthony Lehr and A. Gan were officially charged with murder. However, the big question remained: why would A. Gan willingly become a tool for someone else's murderous intentions? To understand this, we need to rewind to February 2000. At that time, Anthony Lehr met the 5 young men outside a McDonald's in the Pasir Ris area, located in eastern Singapore. The group included 15-year-old A. Gan, 16-year-old Gavin Jin Wei, 17-year-old Vikneswaran Krishnan, 19-year-old Kong Ka Cheong, and 22-year-old Sia Tsi Hao. They quickly bonded as if they had found kindred spirits. Being the oldest, Anthony Lear naturally assumed the role of leader for the group. They began meeting more frequently. Then one day, Anthony Lear suddenly asked, "Are you guys brave?" This question struck at the pride of these young men, who were in the midst of their teenage years. With the excessive confidence and enthusiasm of youth, they boldly declared that they weren't afraid of anything. Anthony Lear then pushed further, asking, "If you're really brave, would you dare to kill someone?" The young men initially thought this was just a joke, so they eagerly claimed there was nothing they wouldn't dare to do. One said he would do it for 100 Singapore dollars, while another said it would take 1,000,000 Singapore dollars for him to consider it. Anthony Lear calmly listened and glanced at each person before finally focusing on Agan. Agan appeared to be the most innocent, like a well-behaved student. Not wanting to be outdone by his friends, Agan responded, "I'd do it for 10 Singapore dollars. At first everyone thought this was all in jest, but they were shocked to realize that Anthony Lear was serious. Moreover, the person he wanted to kill was his own wife, Annie Leong. Initially, Anthony Lear approached Xia Hao, the oldest in the group. He told him he would sell his house to pay Xia Hao for the job. It was only then that Xia Hao realized Anthony Lear was serious, so he immediately refused, and suggested that if Anthony really wanted to go through with it, he should hire a professional hitman. Anthony asked Xia Hao to find a hitman, but of course he couldn't, so he declined. At the beginning of May, Anthony Lear returned to Xia Hao and offered him 10 Singapore dollars to kill his wife. He even took him to his house and showed him a picture of Annie Leong. Anthony Lear told him that Annie Leong was very weak, so it would be easy to kill her. As he spoke, he handed Xia Hao a knife and asked him to cut through a newspaper. He described Annie Leong's neck as being as fragile as that piece of paper, saying that one slash of the knife would be as easy as cutting through the paper. He even reminded Xia Hao to wear gloves during the crime to avoid leaving fingerprints. The plan was for Xia Hao to take Annie Leong's wallet afterward, to make it look like a robbery. It was at this point that Xia Hao fully grasped the seriousness of Anthony Lear's intentions. However, he firmly refused, saying, "I won't do anything illegal." Afterward, Xia Hao considered calling Agan to warn him not to get involved, knowing that Agan was quite naive and could be easily manipulated. Unfortunately, he couldn't reach him. Anthony Lear then turned to two other individuals, Vikneswaran and Kong Ka Cheong. They still thought it was a joke, but every time they met, Anthony Lear would talk about killing his wife. They began to sense something was off. Later one of them said, "I found it very strange. Every time we met he would bring up killing his wife. I thought he had gone mad." Naturally they refused to take on the task. Finally, Anthony Lear turned to Agan. He described his plan to Agan, assuring him that it was foolproof with no room for error. He instructed Agan to wear a helmet to conceal his face and gloves to avoid leaving fingerprints. For the weapon, Anthony Lear provided him with a long, sharp knife that was easy to carry and long enough to pierce the heart. He advised Agan to wear long sleeves to avoid leaving any scratch marks that could serve as evidence. Additionally, Agan was warned not to smoke at the scene, as the cigarette filter could retain fingerprints and saliva. After completing the act, Agan was to take the wallet and any valuable items to make it look like a robbery. When leaving the scene, Agan was instructed not to panic or run, but to walk calmly to the bus stop and take a bus away from the area. Finally, he was to dispose of the weapon carefully. Anthony Lear added, "As long as you follow these steps, the police will never find you. After the job is done, I will pay you 2,000 Singapore dollars every month for the next 4 years." After laying out the entire plan, Anthony Lear didn't forget to threaten the 15-year-old boy, saying, "In reality, I am a professional hitman. My design job is just a cover. Now that you know my entire plan, if you don't go through with it, you'll be eliminated. I've committed countless crimes that the police couldn't pin on me. Silently taking you out wouldn't be hard." This mix of threats and promises ensnared Agan. The naive boy agreed to carry out the murder plan. Anthony Lear purchased 2 phone SIM cards so they could communicate secretly. Afterward, Agan visited Anthony Lear's apartment several times to receive instructions on how to kill Annie Leong. On May 10, 2001, Anthony Lear decided to take action. He led Agan to Annie Leong's residence at 923 Hugang Avenue. Agan put on a helmet, held a knife wrapped in newspaper, and hid nearby. When Annie Leong got out of a taxi, Agan followed her up to the 4th floor. Shortly afterward, Annie Leong came back down, carrying her daughter to the playground. Seeing her with her child, Agan couldn't bring himself to go through with it, and abandoned the plan. After the first failed attempt, Anthony Lear immediately set up a second plan. The next day, May 11th, Agan followed his instructions, and returned to Annie Leong's residence. At this point, Agan wanted to back out of the plan. But Anthony Lear called him and ordered him to proceed. Agan walked around the 4th floor with the knife but didn't see his target. As he went back downstairs, he saw Annie Leong and her daughter playing in the playground on the 1st floor. Seeing this, Agan abandoned the plan once again. With the plan failing twice, Anthony Lear became very angry and decided to confront Agan. But Agan told him he wanted to quit and didn't want to do it anymore. With the plan so close to completion, Anthony Lear of course refused to accept this. Knowing that Agan was fearful, he threatened him, saying, "At this point, whether you do it or not, is no longer your decision. If you insist on backing out, be prepared to find your parents and siblings dead." Out of fear for his family's safety, Agan felt compelled to continue with the murder plan. On May 14th, Anthony Lear arranged for Agan to come to his house to practice stabbing. After some time, he ordered Agan to gear up fully and hide outside Annie Leong's apartment. Meanwhile, Anthony Lear would bring along a real estate agreement as a pretext to meet his wife. Deliberately not bringing a pen, he used it as an excuse to send his wife upstairs while he stayed behind to watch their daughter. This way, Annie Leong would go alone, and Anthony Lear would have a perfect alibi. It was a plan designed to kill two birds with one stone. This time, when Agan saw Annie Leong taking the elevator alone to the 4th floor, he was determined to carry out the plan. Following Anthony Lear's instructions, after committing the crime, he calmly walked to the bus stop and then took a taxi to the beach, where he threw the weapon into the water. After the crime, Agan felt deeply uneasy and filled with regret. He confided in the other 4 friends about what had happened. On May 17, 2001, Anthony Lear contacted Agan and arranged to meet at his house. During their conversation, Anthony Lear was very cautious. Fearing that they might leave evidence or be eavesdropped on, they communicated by typing on the computer. The content of their discussion was that Anthony Lear couldn't pay Agan yet because it wasn't the right time. He needed to act shocked by his wife's death. After finishing their conversation, they deleted the chat. However, what Anthony Lear didn't anticipate was that his cleverness would backfire. The police were able to recover the deleted files from the computer. From the clues they had gathered, the police identified Anthony Lear as the mastermind behind everything. He had orchestrated the entire plot, from the initial planning to coercing Agan into killing Annie Leong. His motive was to gain ownership of the house they shared, and to secure custody of their daughter. On November 19, 2001, Anthony Lear and Agan were brought to trial at the Singapore High Court. Throughout the trial, Anthony Lear stubbornly maintained his innocence. He displayed a strange smile and showed no signs of remorse. He claimed that telling the 5 young men to kill his wife was just a joke. When the police asked him why he brought documents for his wife to sign but didn't bring a pen, he explained that he never had the habit of carrying a pen. The police then asked, "So why didn't you go upstairs with your wife? Why did you keep your daughter with you? All of this seems too coincidental." He replied, "I just wanted to spend a little more time with my daughter. There was really no other intention." In short, Anthony Lear adamantly denied plotting to murder Annie Leong. He even shifted all the blame onto Agan, saying, "Don't be fooled by the fact that Agan is only 15 years old. He's a ruthless criminal. He acted on his own." In this regard, Agan's friends and family vehemently opposed the accusations. They all stated that Agan was naive, gentle, and compassionate. They insisted that if no one had coerced him, he would never have committed such a cruel act. Agan himself claimed that he acted under Anthony Lear's coercion. He had initially wanted to back out, but Anthony Lear threatened his family's lives. For the sake of his family, Agan felt forced to go through with the plan. He revealed the entire scheme that Anthony Lear had laid out for him, including the weapon, the method of the crime, and the escape route. Additionally, Anthony Lear's two former lovers, Marilyn Tan and Belinda Ho, testified in court. They stated that during their relationships with him, they had repeatedly heard Anthony Lear express his desire to kill his wife. Belinda Ho had known Anthony Lear since 1997. Throughout their 3.5-year relationship, she had wholeheartedly supported him, both financially and with manpower, as he tried to start business after business. But every venture ended in failure, leaving him with a massive debt. During their time together, they frequently argued. She recalled that Anthony Lear once said, "If my wife tries to take my daughter, I will definitely kill her." Marilyn Tan met Anthony Lear in October 2000. She also financed one of his business ventures, but it ended in the same way. Another failure. Marilyn Tan once contemplated ending her own life. However, when Anthony Lear learned of her intentions, not only did he not try to stop her, but he also mockingly suggested, "If you don't want to live anymore, why not help me get rid of my wife while you're at it?" These testimonies, along with the earlier circumstantial evidence, led to Anthony Lear being convicted of instigating and conspiring to murder Annie Leong. Ultimately, he was sentenced to death. As for Agan, who directly committed the crime, the judge considered him to be a naive teenager who was manipulated by Anthony Lear into committing such a serious offense. Based on the evidence, and the fact that Agan was under 18 at the time of the crime, the judge did not sentence him to death, but instead handed down a life sentence. Anthony Lear couldn't accept this outcome and filed multiple appeals, all of which were rejected. He then petitioned the president for clemency, hoping to have his death sentence reduced to life imprisonment, but this request was also denied. On December 13, 2002, Anthony Lear, then 35 years old, was executed at Changi Prison. In contrast to Anthony Lear's lack of remorse, Agan was deeply troubled and genuinely remorseful for his actions. With extraordinary effort, he achieved excellent academic results and passed several exams. Moreover, Agan earned a college degree while serving his sentence. His positive attitude and actions were recognized not only through his academic achievements, but also by being named a model inmate. In 2013, Agan submitted a request for clemency to the president, hoping for a pardon, but unfortunately, it was denied. In November 2017, Agan applied once more. This time, his plea for clemency sparked significant public attention in Singapore. His story of rehabilitation and determination quickly spread through the media, touching the hearts of many. As a result, a wave of public support for Agan emerged. Finally, on November 2, 2018, the president granted Agan clemency, reducing the remainder of his sentence. After his release, Agan successfully reintegrated into society. To protect his privacy as a former minor, his identity was kept confidential, and no images of him were ever published in the media. Therefore, his life post-incarceration was not overly affected by his past. Annie Leong's daughter, after losing her mother, was raised by her grandmother, and later went on to attend college. However, the loss of parental love from such a young age is a wound that will likely never fully heal throughout her life. And that concludes today's case. Thank you for watching the video. Please like, share and subscribe so you don't miss other thrilling cases. See you in the next video.